Kevin, we're back with the sixth late take. Yeah, we've made it this far, and the show's going to keep rolling. Kevin, there's a lot today. We're catching up on a couple of things from previous weeks, but more so, last night, oh my gosh, that much happened in one night. The Tuesday night War Pal, NXT, the most loaded ever, AEW Dynamite, the flagship show over 200 episodes in. Kevin, I mean, we'll get to a lot of questions. There's some very meat on the bone topics we'll get to, some
Yeah.
ridiculous questions. But first, how you doing, pal?
I'm good, pal. I can't wait. I have a question for you. One, how are you doing? And two, is this the most powerful, most action-packed, most impactful elite take yet?
Pal, this will be the most explosive, the most powerful elite take. No, I can't wait. I'm doing good, pal. It's 5:03 a.m. now.
Love that.
I woke up at 3:40 a.m. for this.
Yes, for this
So
business, pal.
exactly for this business. Kevin, I'll ask you just firstly.
Oh, hold on. Let me just shout out Spotify real quick. We need 5-star reviews, please. Thank you. 5-star reviews. Thumbs up on YouTube if you're watching this now. Just click the thumbs up. Just do it. Takes like 30 seconds. Not even 30 seconds. Takes 3 seconds. All you gotta do is go bang, click, and that's it. Thumbs up. And I'll just go over the run sheet real quick so you guys know exactly what we're gonna be talking about. Got a loaded conversation today. We got the WWE releases that happened. When was that? Like in September? Like 3 weeks ago
Like
now at this
3 weeks
point?
ago. That was
Yeah.
like 3 weeks ago.
We're going to talk about the two big headlining names, Matt Riddle and Dolph Ziggler. We're going to talk about Adam Copeland's debut. We're going to talk about this big NXT with Cena and you name it. Everybody else was there. Cody Rhodes, Undertaker. We're going to talk a certain guy from Chicago. A lot of rumors going around about a guy from Chicago. Zach Levine. We're gonna talk about Zach Levine. So yeah, there you have it, pal. I mean, we're gonna answer this question too. Did Tony Khan go too far?
I think that's the big one. I think that's
Yeah.
the one. That'll probably be our title. You probably clicked on the podcast for that one. We'll get to that in a minute. But Kevin, firstly, last night, let's talk about that. Let's just kick
Yep.
it off. Kevin, I mean, I'll shed some light here, some behind the scenes. We're both busy people. We don't tend to watch the full shows for anything that's probably not SmackDown, maybe the odd Raw or a PLE or a pay-per-view in like AEW's case or WWE's case. Last night and yesterday, I broke down personally, watched the entire NXT and about 80% of AEW. Kevin, what did you do?
Likewise, I watched all of NXT and I missed the first like 15 minutes of Dynamite. I tuned in like right in the middle of Brian Danielson and Swerve Strickland. I want to say I was watching them both side by side. It was a great night of wrestling, pal. It felt like we were in the middle of the pandemic again.
Absolutely. It felt like a great sort of, I guess, measuring tool to see where both are at and like what the direction is, what sort of product are they producing? Because yes, we were doing this 3 years ago when you'd watch both and it's like, oh my God, this company's doing this is doing that. And in a minute, we'll get to why it was just so different last night and just all that. But Kevin, what were some of the things that happened on, I mean, pick a show, start us off.
Yeah, so there was Dynamite, right? It opened with some good matches, pal. You know, we had the aforementioned Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland. Great match. I mean, honestly, it's one of the better TV matches you'll see all year long. Swerve Strickland looks like a star. He might go down as one of the bigger wasted talents from WWE. And now here, I'll say this. Tony Khan scoops up every wrestler, literally everyone, that WWE discards when they do their quarterly or their biannually releases. Tony Khan's waiting at the door, just like, yep, I'll take this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. So eventually when you sign 100 guys and WWE cuts loose, one of them's going to turn into to be a big star. So, I mean, the odds, I guess, are in Tony Khan's favor, you know? But that's not to discredit Swerve Strickland at all. The guy works hard. He's great. I think he would have been a star regardless if maybe if AEW had put some more thought into him and built him up properly and gave him a rollout a la Jay Cargill. Swerve Strickland could be a real impact player or a game changer in AEW. And he still managed to do all that even with a little rollout. So yeah, there was that. We had Chris Jericho versus Will Hobbs. Will Hobbs beat the ever-living hell out of Jericho. That was, I guess, great to see. I don't know. I'm at a point with Chris Jericho where I just don't care anymore to see him on TV. I just don't. I can't sit here and pretend like I care anymore. Like other podcasters and other media people do. I can't do it. I can't pretend like Chris Jericho makes a difference on the bottom line, or if Chris Jericho makes a difference on me watching the show. He doesn't anymore. We love Jericho. He's one of the best to ever do it. He's one of the top 15, top 17 guys. I think you knocked him down a couple of points based on his concert preferences and his wife's whereabouts a couple years ago, and some concert decisions, like I said, and some tweets. So, yeah, there's a lot of things going against Jericho, but yeah, those are some of the takeaways from Dynamite from the first hour. You want to talk about NXT, pal?
Yes, no, I was thoroughly impressed by NXT. I genuinely was. I thought the flow was excellent. I turned it on, having hardly touched and dabbled NXT. I watched clips and like the main stuff. I caught up on the premium events for months past, but I really tuned in, and I'm watching. Yeah, obviously Cody comes out and it's like, oh my god, Cody's opening NXT. Like, what? It's a bit different. It's a little different having like the face star of WWE, the big attraction of this year, especially, and going forward. Opening NXT, he announces the Dusty Cup. He's announcing things left and right. He's the special GM for the night, pal. Out comes Ilya Dragunov, who, as I discussed episodes ago, I'm not sold on that guy. I'm just not. Like, I'm going to keep this fair. Like, to me, he's just, like, what's different about him? His promo was okay. Dom Mysterio comes out with Rhea Ripley, pal. Your boy, Dirty Dom. Fine segment. You know, you got the NXT champion, North American champion going back and forth with each other. It was decent. You know, Cody makes the match for later in the night, just a casual NXT title match, like 3/4 of the way through the show. They announce, cool. You know, like, what do you think of that? I love Cody as the GM. He's like, he literally he forgot he was the GM. And he's like, wait, I'm the GM. You're gonna have a match, Dom, and you know you're gonna lose, and LA Knight's gonna be the ref. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. WWE they put all the stars they could possibly put in NXT. And seeing LA Knight there was cool. Seeing Cody open the show was just, man, I don't want to say surreal, but you could feel the emotion, you know, with Dusty, his father's ties to NXT. They really haven't, like Cody said, they haven't found a replacement for him. And how do you replace Dusty Rhodes? There's no way to do that. You know, he's a top 25 guy of all time, and it's just like, it's impossible to replace a guy like that. And Cody's out there, you can feel it. You know, he's talking about his father. He's getting really emotional. I mean, that's the way you open a show, man. If you want people to, like, you want eyeballs on the product, you start with Cody Rhodes. That's a huge deal. Cena came out at the ninth hour, but we'll get into that a little bit further on. Yeah, do you want to get to the hard-hitting questions now, pal? Is it time?
pal. I think we just do it. I mean, this has become a bit. We'll like gradually review the NXT and AEW thing through the show, but I think we just need to just cut right to the chase. Kevin, do you want to ask this? Because I can.
Yes, I want to. Yes, I love this.
Yep.
Jimmy, I'm looking into the hard cam, pal. Did Tony Khan finally go too far on last night's Title Tuesday, last night's Dynamite? And what I mean by that, for those of you who are wondering, what do you mean? Did Tony Khan go too far? Did he sign too many former WWE wrestlers? No, I'm just kidding. But no, so for those of you that didn't see the segment, right, that took place between Juice Robinson, Jay White, I think they're called the Ass Boys, Billy Gunn's sons, the Bullet Club Gold, and MJF. So last week, Jay White stole MJF's championship. It was like, it's mine now, pal. And MJF confronted Jay White after his match with Hangman Page and politely asked, hey man, can I have the belt back? You didn't earn it. And then Juice Robinson grabs the mic and he gets a roll of quarters and he's like, oh, this has your name on it, Max. I'm going to hit you with these roll of quarters. So for those of you who don't know, that's a Jewish joke aimed at MJF. And MJF, like, he was like, oh, I'm going to end you if you bring those quarters up. And he's talked about in promos and stories in the past about how he was bullied for his ethnicity and his religious choices as a child. And I guess kids would throw quarters at him and stuff like that, he mentioned. So, given the controversies that are going on in the real world, I don't even know if I can mention them on this channel, but there are controversies going on.
Don't mention it, but if you don't know what's going on, you've had your head in the sand the last 5 days, or, you know, involving 2 specific countries. We're not even going into details because we'll probably get our thing demonetized, but taken down. But Kevin, no, a lot's going on, but
yeah, there's a really there's a conflict going on in a part of the world, where people like MJF come from historically. So with that going on, did Tony Khan go too far by greenlighting this segment to appear on Dynamite last night, I should say?
Well, Kevin, when you were describing the segment, you took out a bit of context.
Yeah.
What happens? Basically, they do this Jay White Hangman Page match, fine match, cool, whatever. I don't care how many stars it gets, whatever. Hangman runs off, cool, like he's like hobbling. Then Jay White's in the ring, MJF's belt, and MJF comes out on the apron, not the apron, the
stage.
ring ramp. Yeah, the stage. He's wearing like the ROH tag title. Like, what am I looking at? And then he actually cuts, to be fair to him, like an excellent promo.
Yeah.
It was a really good promo for like 8 minutes. And, Jay White gets his little bit in. Jay's just playing a typical heel. Haha, I've got your belt. You suck, Max. You can't get it back till it may be the pay-per-view, but I'll win then. And MJF's doing this really personal promo. My character's this. I used to be you, Jay, but I wake up trying to be a better man, yada, yada. A really good babyface promo. So, Kevin, you think, right, he's cut this really good promo. The story writes itself. It's easy. MJF, the belt means everything to him. Jay White has the belt. MJF gets it back at the pay-per-view. Straightforward wrestling story. They'll have a great match at Full Gear. MJF wins. Easy as that. That just seems like, Kevin, if you're Tony Khan, sign that off. That's amazing. They can not touch each other, or MJF can get beaten up by the group, whatever. Then Juice Robinson grabs the microphone. And I'm like, okay, what's he going to do here? And he's like, Max. And he pulls out the quarters. He's like, we got quarters with your name on it. Friedman. And I'm just like most people, like, I'm not mad at Juice Robinson. I don't want to see MJF beat up Bullet Club Gold now anymore. I was just sitting there going, that was tone deaf, unnecessary, and shows that Tony Khan is an embarrassing leader. Tony Khan, What was that?
Wow.
Tony Khan sat there with the executives and looked at the world championship picture and said, yeah, we need that as part of our world title picture. The story doesn't just write itself. We need to do this 3 days after this massive conflict involving I was just watching this. I couldn't believe what I was watching. And then MJF gets like irate, he storms off. I'm like, he could have done that if Jay White could have said literally anything. You didn't need to bring anything up involving that. I'm not even going to say like a lot of it, but just
so
I don't know, Kevin. I don't know. Tony Khan, just to recap my point there, tone deaf and pathetic from the leadership standpoint. Did he finally go too far? I mean, all things considered, my God, Tony, this is why your company gets joked about as being second rate, amateur hour at times, bush league. It's stuff like this. As Eddie Kingston famously said 3 years ago, referring to WWE, a sloppy shop. This was sloppy shop. This was completely unnecessary. So, Kevin, your thoughts?
I was just going to interject to say this. Yes, we know that's Juice Robinson's bit. That's what he does. He punches people with a roll of quarters. Okay, cool. He does that like every week or whenever he's on TV. I don't know how much TV time he gets, but yeah, that's his bit. I get it.
Right.
Was it needed in this week's segment? Maybe not. At the end of the day, it is just wrestling. But still, it's kind of similar. Not, I wouldn't say similar, but because Vince McMahon did it intentionally at WrestleMania 7 with the Sergeant Slaughter stuff. But this is that's the only thing I can compare it to. I can't even think of another instance. Like, there was the Muhammad Hassan stuff, but that was filmed prior to what transpired in London. So it wasn't like WWE tried to capitalize on the heat, pal. And it wasn't like Tony Khan was trying to capitalize on anything, I don't think. I just think that it was ran by him or ran by one of the target managers in the back. And they looked at it and was like, oh, okay, yeah, quarters bit, cool, who cares? Oh, we got to focus on our match, Kenny. Oh, come on, Matt. We got to focus on our match, pal. Yeah, get out of here, Juice. Yeah, go ahead. Say that line. Like, that's pretty much, I would say, how it went down.
Yeah.
There wasn't too much thought put into it, but, I mean, are we seeing the unraveling of MJF? I don't know. Like, there's only so much that I think he can kind of, I don't want to say withstand, but he's putting a lot of pressure on himself. He seems to be on Twitter a lot more, too. going on these longer diatribes. So it seems like he might be cracking a little bit. I don't know. It's unlike him to be on Twitter. Like, usually he'd be in character on Twitter. But it seems like since his babyface turn, he's been tweeting a lot more, like coming at fans or replying to fans or just tweeting longer messages that kind of don't really do anything for his image. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Well, Kevin, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say I've been hinting at this and saying this directly for months and months. He needs to get to 2024, and he just needs that WWE leadership. He needs to, in this situation, Kevin, Triple H, Paul Levesque, and Shawn Michaels and Nick Khan, just sit him down in the room, go, Max, forget what some douchebag who's 15 with no profile picture says on X. You're making $3.5 million a year. You'll be co-main eventing WrestleMania in front of millions and millions. This big sold out. Okay, like that's the sort of management and the leadership side of it that AEW with Tony Khan, there just isn't a thing. There is no real presence at the top, which it's like a calming influence. Tony Khan is sporadic at best. You've seen his promos at live shows. Guys, thank you for coming to Dynamite tonight, guys. We've got a stack show, loaded show.
Yep. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna read these. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just gonna go ahead and read these tweets from MJF real quick, just so you can kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. And then we can kind of go to the next question from there. So MJF, this was after last Dynamite. He cut a promo, kind of like Cena in 2010, where he's just out there saying cheesy stuff, trying to get the crowd to do silly chants to Jay White. So he goes on Twitter, he says, advice from a guy who's been fortunate enough to have accomplished a lot in his profession at a young age. I've noticed something with people in my generation, and hopefully this helps you young pores out there. When you are criticized, of course allow it to upset you. You're only human. But it doesn't matter how good you are at your job. Never blow off criticism. Use it. Never rest on your laurels. There's always room for growth. So, okay, cool. He's tweeting this. It's fair. Then he replies to a fan. The fan says, fucking hell, MJF and his hold the mic up desperately to get a shit unfunny chant over makes me never want to watch wrestling again out of pure mortification. I pray that someone...
Pause. So MJF's just posted that, right? Bit of content. He's now a face. Like, that's part of his character, like that sort of thing right now. That's what he did in his promo, basically. He gets a response from some low IQ troll, bunch of cursing in there, bunch of rubbish. The sort of reply you look at, like that one's just nonsense. And so what does Max reply to let us know?
Yeah, the guy has like 100 followers that tweeted this. And he's like, and MJF goes, already have. I could sit here and tell you I've consistently been the biggest rating draw in my company for some time. I can say that I've also been universally praised. But the fact is, I dropped the ball this week. There's a lot of eyes on me. I can't afford to do that. Look forward to picking the ball back up on Wednesday. So he's talking about the show that we just witnessed. And that's what he's referencing when he says he's going to pick the ball back up. So I guess this was his version of picking the ball back up, maybe trying to hit home a little bit, trying to get a little more personal with the storyline. So I don't know. I mean, and then now, like, a lot of people are being really negative about this, the quarters comment. I don't know. It's definitely a situation to monitor with MJF here. If you allow Twitter to eat you up, it will do just that. Like we see other wrestlers like Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, like guys like that, McIntyre, all this WWE brass, like John Moxley, CM Punk. Like, how often are those guys on Twitter? You don't see like Roman Reigns coming out after a bad promo being like, oh, sorry guys, that's on me, guys, I cut a bad promo. And that's kind of what you're talking about, where Triple H would sit MJF down and be like, hey man, like, it's all right. You didn't think your promo was that great, but it's fine. You'll get him next week. Something like that. Where he doesn't have that. The Young Bucks are not coming up to him saying, hey, bro, you'll get him next week. They're worried about planning their match for next week.
Yeah, no, bang on. And I don't know. I think the shelf life of MJF and AEW is near enough run its course. I don't think that's hyperbolic either. Like, I was watching last night, like, he's feuding with Jay White. He's fleshing out his own character. I get it. Cool. There's obviously the quarters thing or whatever. be at Juice Robinson's bit. The timing was ridiculous, all that. But I don't know. I think he's ready in so many ways to be in WWE. We see now with Jade and how they're presenting her. We've seen with Cody for the last 2 years. I mean, Max is basically, he's a younger, more, I guess, prodigy-like version of Cody in terms of the package of the mic skills and the ring presentation and all of that. He's everything you'd want in a wrestler, just about, essentially. So, yeah, I think, with that situation, Kevin, I mean, as you say, is Matt Jackson going to go, Max, come on, sit down, let's go. Look, forget what that guy says on Twitter, on X. It doesn't matter, okay? You're MJ. You think that's happening backstage? What do you think the Young Bucks are planning what spot they're going to do to try and get an extra quarter of a star from Dave Meltzer at the next Observer ratings? Like, that's legitimately what's going on. So, there.
Yeah, I assume somebody like Cody will see that tweet from MJF and probably call him and just say, hey, bro, like, it's all right, man. Don't let that stuff get to you. That's the assumption here. But, yeah, I mean, MJF's still on a trajectory to be a megastar.
Of course.
This is just not great things to see, You want to see somebody of MJF's caliber not really engaging in this kind of conversation and dialogue on Twitter, I guess. Like, I would personally, as a wrestling fan. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you want to get to the next hard-hitting question, pal? I've been looking forward to this one for like 3 weeks now. I can't wait.
Kevin, go for it. Go for it. Unleash.
All right, I'm going to ask it and then I'm going to answer it.
Yeah, go for it.
Did Matt Riddle get in his own way and prevent himself from becoming a star? So, we saw this guy, Matt Riddle. As some of you know, I assume a lot of wrestling fans don't know this. He was kind of a big deal in MMA, a rising star in the UFC. And he got he got in trouble with the company for testing positive for marijuana. I want to say, I know for sure one time, but I'm sure several times he got a positive test for marijuana. And it kind of became a bit of controversy. It was really the first guy that kind of had this issue. Like, we know Nate Diaz and Nick Diaz, they smoke and they're big advocates for it. But Riddle, it was a different case. The conversation kind of started hey, should this guy be allowed to smoke in between fights? Like, MMA fighters go through a lot, whatever. But then, then it comes out after he gets fired from UFC, hey, this guy has some real personal problems. Which that we then found out about in long form during his WWE career. So he comes to WWE, he starts at NXT after maybe 2-3 years on the Indies, has a pretty good run. He comes up in NXT, he's barefoot, he's got the MMA character gimmick, and it's okay, most people are yeah, this guy is gonna be a big star. Some people like me and yourself are I don't see it in this guy. But in general, the general wrestling fandom, they were all okay, yeah, this guy is a big deal, he's gonna be a star. And he comes up to the main roster. And I would say he became, I wouldn't say a big star, but he's probably in that B tier of guys. Probably in that tier with the New Day and guys like that. I mean, he was in a tag team with Randy Orton, some United States Championship, Intercontinental Championship opportunities, things like that. And he was selling good merchandise, whatever. Then a bunch of stuff comes out about the guy, that he's abusive and that he's cheating on his wife and his kids hate him, and then it comes out that he's addicted to drugs, not just marijuana, that he's doing coke, and then there's the airport incident that led to him being fired. And basically it came out that the guy essentially was only around because Randy Orton liked him, and Randy Orton liked traveling with him and liked tag teaming with him. There was the instance where he forgot his lines on TV, the instance with Goldberg backstage. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people took positively to that because it's Goldberg and everybody hates Goldberg. But you don't just walk around in your place of work threatening to beat people up. It's just not a great thing to do. So the guy definitely got in his own way. Me personally, I think Riddle, with the right circumstances, I think he could have been a cornerstone of this era of WWE. There's a world out there where he finds the right gimmick and he makes it all work. And he becomes a big deal. I think that's pretty fair to say, don't you agree?
Yeah, I know, that's fair. That's fair. What would be the best sort of, let's say, Kevin, in the hypothetical here, that if Riddle doesn't get in his own way as much, or maybe even if he does, he excels as a star, could he have been hypothetically a Jeff Hardy type, maybe had a great peak and had a great run or multiple runs, or maybe this RKO thing, Orton could have been a really great, memorable tag team like the Hardy Boy or something. I don't know. Where obviously Riddle, the person, has his own issues and there's a lot of stuff that goes with that and ends up derailing you in the long term. I get it. But yeah, I mean, Riddle's peak was what? What's the peak of Matt Riddle? I guess doing some segments on 2021 Thunderdome Raw with Randy Orton.
Yeah.
Is really?
Yeah, I would say the RK Bro team, that's his peak, yeah.
And like some of those segments were funny, right? I guess comedy's in the eye of the beholder. Maybe you're listening to this and you thought, I loved every segment. That'll make me smile ear to ear for a year. And if that's the case, amazing. But to me, it was like, some segments on Raw in the dark days of Monday Night Raw in 2021 when it was unwatchable. Some entertaining segments there. But I mean, what else, right? Like he had some good NXT matches in like 2018, 2019. Yeah. Okay. And what else, right? He was appeared on SmackDown from 2020 onwards, and then he was on Raw, and then it's sort of been a bit all over the place, and now he's released, right? Like, did he get in his own way? Objectively, he did. He just did. Like, that's just, there's no other way of putting it. I like that you describe him as like a B sort of tier. I mean, that's what he was. Could he have been an A? I mean, if his own life was in order, why not? He had a pretty good aesthetic. He didn't look like some run-of-the-mill wrestler. He looked different. He stood out that way. His wrestling in-ring was pretty good. His promos were, I guess, engaging at least. You thought, what's he going to say? He could go anywhere with this, which is a good quality to have, I think. You think, okay, what's he going to say? It's not just like he's reading a script word for word. So, yeah, definitely got his own way, Kevin, 100%.
Yeah, it's definitely not like, I don't know, I can't tell you an idea of what the gimmick would be, but there's definitely another world out there where you could have like Riddle versus John Cena in a marquee match at WrestleMania, or Riddle versus Cody in like a 3 pay-per-view main event run. The guy was talented enough to do that. He couldn't put the coke down and the alcohol down long enough. It's similar to Jeff Hardy. Like, that's probably where we were going if the guy didn't have that airport incident. Like, that was so bad, and it was caught on camera that they had to get rid of him. AEW probably would have kept him around. They would have just kept him off TV for like 3 months, but WWE, they can't afford to have that. It's a children's company. You got a guy drunk in the airport harassing people, and then he claimed that he was assaulted by the security guard, and it's like, oh man, it just got worse and worse for the guy. He's a WWE's John Jones, really. Except John Jones is still like the biggest thing in MMA, but it just like the guy had everything. He had it handed to him on a silver platter, had a tag team with Randy Orton, an eventual feud with Randy Orton if Randy Orton hadn't gotten hurt. And I mean, the guy, he even got an Intercontinental Championship with Gunther. Intercontinental Championship match with Gunther, what, like 5 months ago?
Money in the Bank, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like, less than 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Whatever, it is what it is. I mean, the guy Matt Riddle, I'm sure he'll be back. He'll go to AEW or Impact or something. He's starting a cannabis business. He'll be fine, but it was definitely the biggest release of the dark weekend.
Kevin, one more thing on that before we move on to the next wrestler in question. Imagine if he wasn't buddy with Randy Orton. How quickly do you think he would have been gone then? Because I reckon the Randy Orton thing kept him around at least 2 years. Yeah. I think. Like, it's sort of, obviously, it's the wrestling business. There's politics. There's friends involved. We see that with All Friends Wrestling. We saw that in WCW back in the day. We know, Kevin, you do, especially with your channel, Wrestling Uncovered, some of the things you see and you know about. But, if Randy Orton didn't like kicking it on the bus with Riddle, pal, he would have been gone 3 years ago. So, there you go.
Yeah, keep it a real, pal. All right, so, next question. Did WWE make a mistake releasing Dolph Ziggler? Is Dolph Ziggler the single biggest wasted talent, biggest mishandled talent in the WWE?
I guess you're referring to over the last like 15 years, like who they could have used better. And in that regard, yeah. I mean, for starters, and let's be clear here. We recorded a video, was it 2 and a bit years ago, the ultimate burial of Dolph Ziggler. We've done a whole episode, a whole 20 minutes, ripping this guy to pieces. And the reasons mainly were, one, the name of the guy, Dolph Ziggler. Right away, when I was like 8, 9, in like 2011, 2012, I thought, why is he named after a dolphin? That's a stupid name. Like Dolph Ziggler. So for starters, you didn't give him any favors with that ridiculous name. Kevin, are you gonna have Dolph Ziggler on the WrestleMania main event marquee? Like, no. Like right away, it was a letdown because from the wrestling package, I mean, there's not much that Dolph didn't really have, or Nick Nemeth or whatever. There's not much he was really missing. In the ring, he was pretty good. On the mic, he was pretty good. There's obviously the it should have been me. Everyone just refers to him as that. Now that's his legacy. Was him looking at Kofi Kingston on a SmackDown with half the arena tarped off with empty seats, saying, "It should have been me." That's what everyone remembers this guy for, and his infamous app promos in 2014, where he was breaking the fourth wall, pal. He's one of the first to really do the, shoot promo. I'm being held down. I deserve better. He's one of the first to do it after Punk, so he got over in that regard. And there was his Survivor Series 2014 performance, his Money in the Bank cash-in. I'm just listing sort of things I think of with this guy because, there was so much potential there. And it just became basically the last decade, Kevin, from, 2014, 2015 through about now, where he got released, where it's like, he should be used more. He should be pushed. This guy deserves X. He should be used here. Typical wrestling Twitter. He deserves better. He should be blah, blah, blah. He's great. And then it doesn't translate. And he maybe get a push here. Maybe he gets an Intercontinental title match here. There was a good feud with The Miz in 2016. Yes, but it was just, there'd be a good thing every 2 years, it felt like. But on the whole, it was just a guy who was talented but was presented wrong and ultimately wasted. Yes, to answer the question, is he the biggest waste of talent? I mean, one of them. Like he's up there, in my opinion, with a guy like Dean Ambrose and guys who just, it was there, but it just wasn't done properly. And ultimately, it didn't work out. So,
yeah, there's guys like Ambrose, Cesaro is another one that comes to mind. Yeah, I would say Ziggler's up there. I mean, maybe all time in WWE all time. Like Ziggler, he's on a short list of the most wasted talents. He had everything. He had the big title win and arguably the best Money in the Bank cash in 2013. And then that was kind of it. He held the belt for like 6 weeks, however long it was. They did the flip flop. They turned him a babyface. They turned Del Rio heel, and they gave Del Rio the belt. And that was it. Ziggler never sniffed the main event scene ever again. He would go for like 3, 4, 5 months without being on TV regularly. He'd be doing pre-show matches, main event matches, and you'd see him cut like great promos on WWE.com or the app or whatever the forum may be. It was anything but WWE TV, where he'd be cutting these great shoot style promos. He had all the ability. He had the look, the bleach blonde hair, chiseled, pretty good size, like 6 foot, 6'1". He could stand next to like a Seth Rollins, like a Roman Reigns, and could hold his own from an aesthetic standpoint. He had the ability to talk. He could wrestle. He could sell his ass off. One of the best in terms of selling. One of the best in terms of selling we've ever seen. Just the way he would sell like the punt kick, the RKOs, the suplexes. He could deliver a great drop kick. Like the guy was money. It didn't make too much sense that he didn't get pushed. Like I know there was one point in time where he said some stuff in an interview about Randy Orton that if he and Randy Orton met in an alley, like then we would see who the better wrestler is. That probably didn't look too great for him. I assume he was a guy that spoke his mind maybe a bit too much. That's maybe what it was. He might have been a guy that would sit in Vince's office and argue for an hour, and then Vince would be like, "Oh, just damn it, bury him. I'm tired of this guy." That maybe it was something like that. I don't know. But it wasn't talent. It wasn't skill. It wasn't anything like that held him back. The name, yeah, but I mean, who cares? There's a great rapper named Young Dolph that everybody respects. So I don't know. It's not. Yeah, the name was corny, but you could get over corny names. It's wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, Kevin, the fact is the guy named The Miz,
right,
has spent 20 years. He has his own show that's named after Miz today. What is a Miz? You know, like it's ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah. There's been ridiculous names. That's not a big enough cinder block, and he could have got it changed if he really wanted to. He could have been like, "I'm gonna be the Zig, pal."
Well, Kevin, now just on Ziggler, I guess going forward, how long until he's the new action figure in All Elite Wrestling, pal? Are we giving that 2 weeks, 2 months? Full Gear. Are we going to be watching Full Gear? Dolph Nemeth's in All Elite Wrestling, guys. Game changer. And then he's going to follow the game changer trajectory. A few matches on Rampage. He comes in. Oh my God, he's main eventing against whoever, Bryan Danielson here. Oh my God, this is the new shiny toy. Give it 2 months. He's wrestling. He's working tag matches on Dark Elevation, if that's even still a thing, or on the 75-minute mark of Collision with Ryan Nemeth doing tag matches against the Dark Order. Then now he's off TV, pal. We don't see him for 3 months. Tony Khan's forgotten about him. Oh, there's a new toy, pal. New Lee's in the Impact Zone, pal.
Yeah, the Nemeth brothers, that's a tag team right there, pal. The Nemeth brothers mechanic and tire service, pal.
You're evil for that, pal, because it's true. Because that's the thing. As talented as he is, it's the same thing as all these other AEW game changers. You could say a lot of this stuff about guys like Claudio, Malachi Black, Andrade Alidolo, Keith Lee. I mean, you make a laundry list of them, but nonetheless, Kevin, back to the initial question. Yeah.
The reality of the situation is Nick Nemeth is 43 years old now. He's a comedian at this point, stand-up comedian. He doesn't offer too much to AEW. He offers a lot in terms of okay, this is a veteran, this is an adult in the room, per se, in the locker room, But, I mean, the Jacksons aren't going to like that too much. The Cucamonga brothers are going to be like, oh, no, get that guy out of here. He knows nothing about the business. We know everything. So, how much does a guy like that really add to the locker room? I don't know.
Well, Kevin, it's the same leadership who quite literally told or implied with their decisions on television that guys like Jim Ross, guys like Taz, guys like Paul White, who they brought in, guys like Mark Henry, who they brought in, people like that. I mean, we'll bring them in, but I'm not going to listen to you. I mean, yeah, you've 30-year career with main events, and you've made millions of dollars being a great sports entertaining wrestler. Whatever. We've had 6-star matches with Meltzer. Shut up. I'm not listening to you. We've worked matches in ROH bingo halls. Shush. Paul White. We don't care. That's what we're working with here. So whatever.
Pal, hit me with the next question. I'm ready.
Deep breath. Listeners, are you ready? Okay. Now, Kevin, I'm just going to ask you this. Is Adam Copeland a draw?
Well, it depends on the context. What year is it? Is it 2011? Am I still in high school? Is it 2007? Am I in middle school? What's the context? Are you talking about 2023, like right now, current day? No, Edge is not a draw. No, Edge is not a draw. He's just not anymore. I hate to say that. We love Edge. Edge made our top 20. He would have been higher on both of our lists, but a match graphic designed by an AEW intern with him and Luchasaurus just cost him a couple of spots. For me, he missed out on being top 15 because of an AEW intern's graphic work. I digress. Nevertheless, the guy is not a draw. He's not a CM Punk in terms of being a draw for AEW, at least in AEW speak. Yeah, sure, Edge is a Hall of Famer, respected guy, but Edge has entered that portion of his career where it's like, okay, we saw him return. We saw him wrestle everybody that he wanted to wrestle just about in WWE. He wrestled Styles, Rollins, Randy Orton, Fergie, you name it. I'm sure there's other guys.
Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, he wrestled everyone that we wanted to see him wrestle. Yeah, sure, it would have been cool to see Edge face Jon Moxley or Dean Ambrose in a WWE ring or Cesaro. It would have been cool. It would have been nice, but we got a lot from him in his return. Now, are we craving to see those matches that I mentioned? Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Bryan Danielson in AEW. Are we craving to see that? Adam Copeland versus Christian main eventing Full Gear? No, it's just there's not the same desire there as there is with Punk. For example, he's really the only guy I could use right now. He's the only other big star. Edge objectively is better all time, a bigger star in culture than CM Punk. But CM Punk at least brings that oof, that extra oof, that Edge doesn't bring anymore. And it's nothing against him. What is Adam Copeland versus Luchasaurus in a great match, pal, gonna do for the bottom line in AEW? I guess we'll find out when the ratings come in. Yeah, we saw a big, massive ratings war, pal, on Tuesday night. We saw NXT with WWE bringing in the big guns. We saw Cena. We saw Cody. We saw Taker. We saw Braun Breaker versus Melo Hayes. We saw the NXT title being defended against Dominic Mysterio. We saw Rhea Ripley, Asuka. I don't know. We'll see what Adam Copeland does for the bottom line. I know last week his official debut on Dynamite got outdrawn by NXT, and they weren't going up against each other either. This was just AEW standalone on Wednesday, NXT on Tuesday. NXT did like 870,000, I believe, and Dynamite did a flat 800,000. Punk's first Dynamite did what, like 1.2 million? 1.3? Something like that?
I mean, I think probably like 1.1 maybe, but even still, the point being, there's a significant, sizable, tangible gap. There's a difference. You can see that. And, with Adam Copeland, Kevin, I'll let you double down on this again. We talk about AEW, and it's been a thing now for 4 years. They've clear honeymoon phases with wrestlers. Punk's one ended up lasting like a year before the infamous all-out media scrum, Brawl Out. It lasted a year.
No, not even. It was like what? When did Hangman cut that shoot promo on him and go off script? That was like May. Yeah, that was like 7 months. Like 8 months in. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So that was on the longer ones, in fairness. But usually wrestlers or game changers or big new signings get a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months or 3, and then something will happen, or just generally you'll just be like, they're here now, whatever. How long do you reckon before it gets that way with Adam Copeland? Because what they're doing at the moment, they've got the title Christian's holding, the secondary title, feeling more important than the world title. The world title is just happening in the middle of the show with like Juice Robinson throwing quarters, pal. And as we discussed, Christian Jay's got the title, and then they're ending shows with Adam Copeland at 49 and Jay at 49 confronting each other. And it's not bad stuff, great for them. They get to live out their childhood dream, ending shows together, feuding. But from an audience standpoint, next week, the week after, I mean, even going into this week, Adam Copeland versus Luchasaurus, pal. Great. Cool. Awesome for Luchasaurus. He gets to wrestle Adam Copeland 100%. But what's your interest like? How long the honeymoon going to last, pal?
Well, I'll say this. If Edge's big return to wrestling had occurred in an AEW ring, that would have been a needle mover and a moneymaker for AEW. Now that we've been there and done it, we've seen Edge wrestle in WWE for over 3 years at this point, it doesn't have the same effect. Now, the honeymoon phase, here's the reality of the situation. How long before the Cucamonga Boys, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega, they look at this and they're like, wait, who is this has-been in WWE? This has-been wrestler, this guy that was famous when we were kids. Who is this guy? And why is he getting our spotlight? This is our time. This is our company. We're the stars. We're in our prime. Like, how long are they going to sit back on the sidelines and just be cool with Adam Copeland and Jay Rizzo running wild, hogging up all the main event spotlight? Like, that's kind of what happened with Punk. Kind of not, depending on who you ask. Yeah, there's obvious differentiations here. CM Punk is notoriously difficult to work with. Edge is notoriously regarded as a guy that everybody likes in the backstage, in the locker room environment. You don't see too many people, aside from like the Matt Hardy stuff, but in terms of dealing with Edge person to person, you don't see too many people saying bad things about Edge. You don't hear about instances of him throwing coffee in a writer's face, or yelling at people backstage, or being unapproachable. You hear that in general, he's a pretty nice guy to talk to, friendly guy. You heard that about Punk. There's Jay Cargill and Ricky Starks are some of the 2 most popular ones that said good things about him. But with Edge, it's like everybody says great things about the guy. So that's a difference there. Like, maybe it'll last a little bit longer because of that factor. Go ahead.
So what you're saying is he's more in the Bryan Danielson elk as opposed to a CM Punk who is more out of from the backstage standpoint, the Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior side, like backstage.
Right.
Sort of thing.
Right, but Edge is different than Bryan because Edge is going to be like, look, I'm here to main event. You know, Brian's okay opening shows, or Brian's okay being put in the middle of the show. I don't think Edge is going to be cool with just being a second or third match on the card in some Tony Khan dream action figure wrestling card. You
Yeah.
know, Edge is going to want a main event. Edge is going to want to be selling the most merch. Edge is going to want to be headlining shows, headlining house shows, headlining collisions. He said all that in the press conference. Like, he's not here to just come in and waltz around and throw around his legend status. He's here to be a full-time performer.
Yeah.
And the other side of that coin, too, is how long can he hold up from a physical standpoint? You know, he wasn't wrestling all that much in WWE. He wrestled like every what, like month, every 2 months, 3 months. He'd take breaks, come back. He didn't wrestle a lot on free TV. Most of his work was done on PLEs. Edge is already wrestling Luchasaurus on a Tuesday night, and he said he wants to wrestle like fairly often, and he's going to be a full-time guy. So how long can his body hold up, too?
It's a fair question. And I mean, one more thing on that. You mentioned how he's here to main event. He's here to do, all this up the top of the card. That's how he views himself, and rightfully so. Top 15 all time that got bumped off because of the match graphic for you. And for me, he was number 19 and he was number 16, but he dropped down because of Wrestle Dream. Like, I look at that guy. What's Adam Copeland going to be thinking? This is all I'll say. What's Adam Copeland, the person, going to be thinking when he's standing on the apron during some big 8-man tag match, like 3 matches into a 15-match show, and he's just, it's just this big match. He's like, he's like going on 30. It's just Adam Copeland, pal. He's on the apron, tag him in, and it's like, oh, that's Edge.
Yeah.
What was, oh my God, Edge is going to face Seth Rollins. Oh my God, dream match. Oh my God, Edge versus Styles, WrestleMania. Oh my God, they're doing Edge versus Roman Reigns. Are you kidding me? First show back with fans, first pay-per-view. Oh my God, take my money. Edge versus Randy Orton. Edge versus Daniel Bryan versus Roman. Oh my God, that's what it was. And then, the Balor thing sort of dwindled his credibility. I think it became, he's facing Fergal again, really. And then now here, hopefully, with him wrestling every other week, it seems, Edge on Collision, Edge on Dynamite, Edge on Rampage. Adam Copeland on this show, that show. There's a pay-per-view in December. Adam Copeland at Full Gear. Adam Copeland at Revolution. You give it 3 months, and you'll probably just be like, oh, it's just Adam Copeland there. Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Like, that's how our brains work, Once he's wrestling every other week, it's like, it's Adam Copeland. Oh, he's wrestling who? Wheeler Yuta? Okay.
Yeah. Like you're just gonna go back to thinking, okay, wow, yeah, I remember WrestleMania 24 versus The Undertaker. I remember the big TLC 2 match. Oh, I remember when he did this against John Cena when he slapped John Cena's dad. Like, that's kind of where my mind was going when I was watching the match last night. I watched him versus Luchasaurus live. Christian cut a scathing promo. Yeah, he had the line about, telling Beth Phoenix, hey, the kid's real daddy's coming home. Change the sheets. Like, yeah, that's cool. And Christian did say some stuff that felt kind of real. That felt like something I was thinking when he's like, oh, Adam needs me more than I need him. I'm flourishing. He was becoming a guy, like, I think he referenced, or I know he referenced Judgment Day. I forgot how he referenced it, but he was just a guy in a faction on the other side, and I'm the hottest thing going in this company, and everybody's talking about me in my promos. Like, that, it's kind of real what he's saying. Edge comes to AEW now, and is he riding Christian's coattails? No, but the feud with Christian is kind of the one main thing that he can cling to in AEW. Yeah. Like, 3 years ago, a lot of people wanted to see Edge versus Kenny Omega. That is significantly cooled off now.
Yeah.
Just because of both guys cooling off. Kenny Omega especially. Kenny Omega's a shell of himself, honestly. Let's put it the way it is. Yeah, he's a top 45, whatever we ranked him, top 40 guy all time, but he's not that right now. So I don't know. I don't know what there is for Edge to do, and I mean, maybe we're just talking a lot of smack and we're being hyperbolic, and then in 6 months, Edge will be doing the best work of his career, and Edge versus MJF will be a 7.5-star match in the Tokyo Dome. Who knows?
One thing I will say on that, MJF needs Adam Copeland right now. Building on what we were saying before, that program is so big for both of them, mainly MJF, because MJF right now, they're not going to ruin MJF. It's almost impossible to ruin a guy like that, but he needs a better direction than him yelling at Jay White and Juice Robinson and whoever else in that stable. Anyway, Kevin, let's be more positive now. I want to discuss NXT because we both watched this whole show. I want your like ruthless opinion. This is the most stacked NXT show ever, and it's not even close. People with this discussion always bring up the 2019 NXT on USA premiere, and yes, that was stacked with some big title matches and what have you. I'll put it this way: a show that features, I mean, there's a laundry list. I think you mentioned most of these earlier, but John Cena, as we'll discuss next week, like a Mount Rushmore all-time guy. The Undertaker, Mount Rushmore sort of guy. Paul Heyman's presence there. The Bloodline as well, the biggest stable last few years. They had presence there. Asuka, one of the greatest women's wrestlers of the generation. There's references to Becky Lynch. She wasn't quite on there, but what have you. LA Knight was there, the most over guy at the moment. It felt like a laundry list of current stars or past stars, what have you. Big main event match, Breakker versus Hayes, all that. Kevin, I just want your opinion. What did you think of that event, the most stacked show? Because compared to 2019's premiere, I'll take what I just listed there over Balor kicking Gargano, pal.
Yeah, I will too. I think overall, in the grand scheme, it was a great show. It was a great watch. It was easy to watch. Really, the biggest takeaway is the fact that WWE pretty much presented to you, here, guys, these are our two big stars of the future in Bron Breakker and Carmelo Hayes. We saw Bron Breakker getting the big introduction from Paul Heyman. We saw him interact with Cena, and thank God Cena stopped himself from tearing him to shreds on the mic, because he could have single-handedly ended Bron Breakker's career the way he did Austin Theory. Like that was great by Cena. Cena's like, should I let him off easy? Because like Cena could have ended Bron Breakker. Bron Breakker would have had no response. Like Cena would have torn him to shreds for like 3.5 minutes. Talked about how he's only where he's at because of who his uncle and who his dad is. And Bron Breakker would have just been like, deer in the headlights look. And that would have been the end of Bron Breakker's run. So shout out to Cena for saving him, putting him over. That was excellent use of John Felix Anthony Cena right there. You put the next big heel in the ring with Cena. Good stuff. He's already working with Carmelo Hayes in the main event. So that was a good rub. Then you had the stuff with The Undertaker. Undertaker coming out, choke slamming Bron Breakker. Then he did the whole like pose down with Carmelo Hayes. That was cool. You can see Carmelo Hayes like, oh my god, it's The Undertaker. Oh my god, I get to do this with The Undertaker. Like, that's a big deal. It's similar to when Undertaker shook Cena's hand after Cena's debut. And it's similar to when they just threw Cena out there to the wolves and had him slap Kurt Angle. Like, that's what you do. That's how you make new stars. Like, I know I got into a little bit of a debate with Art over how WWE and AEW, the contrast between making stars. In AEW, you have Luchasaurus just stands behind Christian Cage, while Christian Cage cuts a scathing promo on Beth Phoenix and Edge's daughters. Or you have Chris Jericho come out there, hog all the spotlight, and Sammy Guevara is just like, hey bro, yep, I'm here. Whereas in WWE, you got these guys interacting with the big stars. Like, yeah, this didn't happen maybe like 5-6 years ago. It didn't happen this way. But now, you got WWE, these Hall of Famers interacting with Carmelo Hayes and with Bron Breakker and Tiffany Stratton. Becky Lynch, we can't go without mentioning that. Becky Lynch is doing a ton for Tiffany Stratton's career. So, yeah, this was WWE planting their flag forward. They showcased the NXT champion. And they're getting ready to push Carmelo Hayes or Bron Breakker to the next level. I thought it accomplished everything it needed to.
Oh, no, it was great. And I'll second everything you've said there. I want to just touch on a couple other things. I mean, obviously, you mentioned the big ones with Bron Breakker. And it wasn't just because I got sent this one idiot who was like, oh, well, like the legend, Undertaker just beat up Bron Breakker. What a way to bury him. And it's like, Paul Heyman endorsed him like several times, came out with him. That main events against Melo Hayes and has The Undertaker and everything involving that ending. It was just brilliant. It was great stuff. To me, I view Bron Breakker more highly now. That's the goal. Melo Hayes, exact same thing. He's doing backstage segments with Cena. He's raising his arm with The Undertaker. There was that sick photo with when the show was ending or afterwards where The Undertaker's doing like that, like back facing the camera, and then Melo Hayes doing it with him. Like, it's just cool stuff. And some other, less notable one, the Brian Pillman thing. I mean, you would have seen this. That was brilliant.
I saw it.
That was excellent. Like, that in 2 minutes did more for him than I can think of anything he did involving AEW. Like, that was just a very clear, addressing the elephant in the room. Yes, my dad's Brian Pillman. He was dead when I was 4. To me, he has my last name. I love him, but I'm my own guy. I'm going to path my own, road as such. And I was thinking, watching that, I'm like, a storyline with him and Cody Rhodes eventually would be great. Cody, because I mean, their whole thing, both of them, is about stepping out of the shadows, living in the legacy of an absolute legend of the business, but making your own path. And Cody can just be like, look, you beat me, you'll step out of the shadow, or something like that. Like, they could do a great storyline with that. But nonetheless, there was that. The Tiffany Stratton thing I thought was hilarious. That backstage segment they do, Asuka's there. She's like shaking hands. All the NXT women's wrestlers are running over. Asuka, then they run off. And then Tiffany Stratton comes over. She's like, bitch. And then she's like, I'm Tiffany Stratton. Hi. You know me. And
I love that.
The presentation was great. Like, it was so clearly like, okay, these women are all forgettable. Who cares? Here's the star. Like, the presentation was great. Speaking of presentation, Jade's presentation, getting out of this big limousine, wearing this over-the-top pink outfit that probably cost like tens of thousands of dollars out of Nick Khan's budget, that walks over to Sean Higginbotham, a man who's famous for raunchy behavior in the mid-1990s, backstage turmoil, drama, scandal, shakes his hand. Sean's like, oh my God, it's Jade, pal. And then, like, that was just the presentation all throughout the night was brilliant. I love LA Knight being the referee because that match, it was hilarious. You got Ilya Dragunov, who's the NXT champion. He's the face of this brand. You got Dom Mysterio, Dirty Dom, who's his own act. He's the North American champion. And all you're watching during the match is LA Knight because of his movement is so ridiculous. No referee should be that jacked with arms out. He was wearing like the referee top with his own vest, and he's moving around. Like, LA Knight's so stiff. He moves like he's always got a pump, right? So he's so like robotic with his movements. Everything's like he's like his arms are always like this. Like, I couldn't unsee that when I was watching it, but it was very entertaining. They do the ending. Rhea Ripley's involved. Obviously Dom doesn't win the NXT title. He never was going to, but yeah, thoroughly entertained from that show. I was right throughout. I was enjoying the event. So shout out NXT. They did a great job. It's put over the future really well. I can clearly see the vision for the future, the plan, where they're going to sort of go once Roman Reigns is officially like a part-time legend who only shows up for WrestleMania and SummerSlam. Once Seth Rollins is gradually phased out, I can see the direction beyond that now. I can see what they're going to do. So, yeah, nothing more I can say. Great stuff.
Love it. Love it, pal. So I guess the final question is CM Punk related. So CM Punk had some rumors going around that, he was in contact with WWE. There was like one source came out and was like, oh yeah, he'll for sure be at Survivor Series in Chicago in November. And then it comes out this morning before we record, like, oh hey, yeah, Punk reached out to WWE and they were like, nah bro, sorry, no interest on our end. So you think that's it? Like, what's next for CM Punk? Like, do you think he'll still show up in WWE? You think he'll show up in the Impact Zone? Is this the end of him wrestling? Like, what do you think?
Well, my stance on this, and it's been like this since, Punk departed AEW, WWE does not need CM Punk.
Right.
If this was 2020 or 2021, and WWE's sort of meandering and fumbling along and, they're spluttering and the direction's not great, they need CM Punk. I think they did in 2019, 2020, 2021. It would have been huge to WWE to get CM Punk. Right now, they have actual direction. Right now, I can tell you a clear structure of these are the top faces, these are the top heels, this is what's going on, this is the leadership, this is what like everything's laid out. CM Punk can't do much aside from stuff that up, really. Even if he's on his best behavior, he's behind the scenes, he's a good boy for 3 to 6 months, we can maybe get a great storyline with Roman Reigns or Cody or Seth Rollins, which would be great television, as we discussed weeks ago. But really, long term, is there a need? And that's where my played in 2K take comes from with CM Punk. WWE doesn't need CM Punk. Does CM Punk need WWE? Kevin, I guess I'll ask you that. Because WWE right now are trotting along, doing their thing. When the tickets come out for the Royal Rumble in a few weeks, you'll get your ticket.
Next week,
when the Elimination Chamber tickets come out officially, I'll be on that within 5 minutes. Make sure I get my ticket booked. That's 4 or 5 months out. I don't care if Punk's out, it's a bonus. Amazing. If Phil Brooks could be there, cool, dope, great. But I'm not like, oh my god, I'm only going to buy this ticket if CM Punk's there. Like, it's not like that. It's, WWE is its own flying machine. All Punk could do is jam a wrench in that. So, yeah, what do you think, Al?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think WWE doesn't need him, no. The short answer to that, no. They don't need him. Does he need them? Not really. Like, I don't think he really does. Like, he already has his legacy cemented. He's made a ton of money. I think it'd be nice to see him have a nice, like, one last run. Have a few matches with Roman Reigns. A few matches with Seth Rollins. Like, it'd be nice. But it's not, like, it's like a cherry on top of what's going on in WWE right now. You get CM Punk in for a big Night 1 WrestleMania match. That'd be cool. It's not something that they need. No, like, when you put it that way, like, no. It's not anything like it. It's not WWE in 2018 where, yeah, CM Punk, his presence was badly needed on TV to make things interesting. But no, right now they're doing fine. They have a big star in Cody. They have a big star in Roman. They've got all these tag teams, factions. They're building the future. They don't necessarily need the guy. But I still would like to see it. Like I said, I wouldn't be against it. It'd be cool, that big moment of him coming back in Survivor Series in Chicago. It'd be a big moment. I think his return in WWE would be bigger than his return in AEW. Like in AEW, it was the big, oh my god, CM Punk's here. Oh my god. And that lasted for like a month, 2 months, and then it was like, okay, CM Punk's one of the boys, one of the action figures. And then it just, the Young Bucks got jealous, and they threatened to beat him up, and Hangman went off the script, and then there was the fight it all out, and all that stuff, so on and so forth. In WWE, realistically, you have him come back for a year and a half, 2 years, get the big pop. Like, I think that people would go crazy. I think that'd be one of the biggest moments in wrestling if he came back at Survivor Series in Chicago. One of the biggest moments of the last 5 years. It would just be more commercial, better production. It would mean more because of the lineage and everything he's accomplished in WWE if he showed up at Survivor Series.
Yeah.
So with there's a lot of positives. There's also a ton of negatives. There's a ton of negatives there. I don't know. It's a complicated and complex situation. Not really much more we can say on it now with the rumor killers that came out this morning.
Well, it's a complicated situation one of the best words to describe Punk is complicated. It's like complicated is a good way of summing him up. And the good of what you list there, the potential for a return, an amazing program or two, the marketing, how to be presented, all definite positives. Maybe he goes off script and takes a jab at the Elite, pal. Ooh, but at the same time, I don't want to bring up. I know. I don't want to bring up how hypocritical it'll be. Remember the MJF feud when Punk was like, are you just going to go to that? He was making just a WWE line. I forget the exact verbiage, but make the trip up to Connecticut and work for a buy one get 4 free 5-night long extravaganza double. Like, I forget the line, but most of you will know what I'm talking about. Like, that guy going scurrying back to that company within like a year ago, he made that scathing line to pot WWE, pal. Now he's back. Just goes to show you how WWE is like that. No. I'll park that. I'll save that, pal. Want to carry on anything else, or are we all done here?
Pal, you want to go around the world?
I do. I'd love to. We're going around the world, pal.
Around the world, pal. So I want to tell the story about how there was almost no more Elite Heat. I think that's a great story.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, let's go.
This was what, like, when did we take a break? Like early 2022, right? It was like January-ish, around there.
It was mainly 2022 when it was just WWE was hard to watch, and we couldn't think of any content because it was like Roman versus Brock and Charlotte versus Ronda, and that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was like a point in time where we were just doing like live streams like once every month or something.
Yeah.
And I remember one time there was like an instance, like, I don't know when it was, but I think it was around WrestleMania 38. I was like pitching ideas, like, oh, let's do this, let's record this, and you just didn't respond to me for like 5 days. And I was just like, oh, all right, guys, I guess this is it. Like, no more Elite Heat.
Oh no.
And then I don't remember exactly what happened. Like, you ended up replying Like not responding to my ideas, just saying something else. Like, oh, look at this tweet or something. And then I was like, oh, look at this guy. He doesn't care anymore. So, all right, I guess that's
Oh
it, pal.
no. Oh, it's so bad. No, that happened as well. I was so out of it. I was just like, bruh, this is wrestling. Like, what can I possibly do a podcast on about this? You know, because I was just it was nothing to do with you. It's just I was watching the show. I'm just like, I can't do a podcast on this. Like, I can barely think of. And that's when I was trying with my own YouTube videos as well. Like, every 3 or 4 days, I try and have a high quality, well produced, like 10-minute video for like WrestleMania season. I'm like, I can't think of content. Like, I don't know what we could do a weekly podcast on. And so I remember that. So you'd send through like legitimately good ideas of, like, it was like, from your perspective, you're in a desert and you're finding like wells of water in the desert. It was like a content desert. There was nothing. And then I remember you were saying the ideas, and I'd look at them and go, oh, that's cool. And then I'd think, oh, well, then we have to actually really, then I just, respond, oh, look at this, pal, Darby Allin dropping on his head, pal, AEW botches. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was almost no more Elite Heat because of Jimmy, pal. So direct your hate comments towards him, pal, and his negligence.
Pal, I want to, oh my God. Can't believe you said that. And my negligence. That's brilliant. I haven't heard that word used anywhere besides people driving. Negligence. Really? Yeah. That's phenomenal. Pal, I want to address something as well. Now, I've seen this. I doubled down on this last week.
Oh, no.
I'm still seeing people saying my Vince McMahon at 29 take is the worst take all year from us, which I find laughable.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that of everything we've said this year, me placing an all-time legendary wrestler in the top 30 gets the most negative criticism. I said, Kevin, I'm not even blaming any takes you've had. I mean, I can't think off the top of my head anything you've said that's so horrendous this year.
Mm-hmm.
I was the one who said Cena vs. Theory should have main evented night 1 of WrestleMania. That was just a dark day in this podcast.
Hey, it happens.
I thought I was reinventing the wheel. I thought, everyone's saying it should be the tag match. Everyone's saying it should be Rhea versus Charlotte. It should be Cena vs. Theory. I was trying to reinvent the wheel. The wheel broke. So that was my bad. But Kevin, I don't know. I just want to ask you, is there any takes for you this year that you think, I remember that I said that in January. Oh no! Is there any takes you've had which you remember now? Just think,
not really. I'm trying to think. I assume you have one in mind of mine. That's why you asked me this, because I don't know. I don't have anything that I can think of. Like, there was a Nakamura take that I made like 2 years ago.
Oh no!
Where I said someone like him would never be in a mainstream music like video or a song or anything, and then Lil Uzi Vert makes a song after him. I don't know. I can't think of anything really egregious that I've said. You tell me, pal.
Well, Kevin, I'm out of us. I'm usually I'm not gonna say like the hot take machine. I'm the one who literally said Daniel Bryan should retire before he went to AEW. That's been a disaster. I said Eva Marie in 2021. Eva Marie should win the Queen of the Ring. She was released within a month. Jeff Hardy should win King of the Ring. He wasn't even in the tournament. I'm just, I've had some questionable ones over the journey, but it's all part of the fun, pal. It gives you guys something to think about. I believe genuinely though that Vince McMahon is top 30 all time. That one I'm not kidding about. He's a top 30 talent all time as a wrestler. And if you don't believe that, you know nothing about wrestling or nothing about sports.
Wow. I love that.
Yep.
Very, very challenging, pal. I don't know. I'm trying to think of any really bad takes. So I'm like, ugh. Wish I didn't say that.
Maybe in the chat or the comment section or our email or whoever. If you can think of like what's Kevin besides the Nakamura one, which we've discussed. What's the take Kevin's had, which you've listened to and gone, oh. I mean, maybe in the draft when you picked. I remember you did something about Elite Heat draft.
I picked Ronda Rousey. Yeah.
Like, I thought that was disgusting. You picked Ronda Rousey over Daniel Bryan. Like, I thought that was hideous. But even still, you're trying to save a dead women's division that you drafted to your show. So
wow.
Pal, I had all the female stars, and you had like Charlotte and
Alexa Bliss or something. Yeah.
You had Rhea and Charlotte, and then you were like, oh, I need Ronda. I was like, oh my god, is this guy for real?
Yeah. What else am I gonna do, pal? You took everyone. Yeah. So let's talk about driving, since you brought up driving.
Yes.
But what's it like driving in Australia, pal? In the outback.
in the outback. Just wow. No, the driving here, I mean, I don't know what's like there, but you get your fair share of drivers who just can't, and like a speed limit is just like a guideline which they don't follow. And if it's 90 kilometers an hour, they're going to go at 110 just because that's just what happens. But, I mean, I assume that's the case everywhere. People speed, people are responsible. That's just people, right? That's not an Australia thing. The thing over here, I don't know, Kevin. On your opinion, have you ever had any negative experience with learner drivers, like people who are just starting to drive? Have you ever had anything where I don't know, just any negative experiences on the road, like they're driving, they just stop in the middle of the road or something, like a negative experience, Cal?
Yeah, I mean that happens often.
Yeah.
Trying to think of one that stands out.
Because over here, the culture with learner drivers is horrendous. Like everyone knows, like it's the learner. It's probably some 15 or 16-year-old, probably got acne everywhere, super insecure, not self-confident. They're in like the 10th grade. Life's challenging. They're learning to drive. They're nervous. They're stressed. They're shaking. They're trying to make sure the car goes properly. Then they're like they can't start the car at a traffic light, and you're stuck behind them. And it's Australia, so you got like tradies, g'day mate, and then they're just ramming on the horn at some 16-year-old who's like emotional and like shaking, and some tradies like,
oh my god,
that's Australia, so
there's not a ton of that. Like I would say, learning culture now, not really a big deal. The biggest deal. This never happened to me personally, but in Florida, where I'm at in South Florida, you run into a lot of people who don't speak any English,
Yeah.
And then I mean, like speaking Spanish doesn't even cover the whole spectrum, Like there's a million different languages spoken here, so there's a lot of times you get these people that come from other countries that don't really know how to drive because they didn't drive in their country, or the rules are not as strict per se, or it's not as structured in their other countries.
Yeah,
I would say that's really the biggest challenge, is dealing with those people. Good,
Kevin. From my personal experiences, I'll just ask you: Tesla drivers, people who drive Teslas, are they, in your experiences, good drivers, okay, or bad drivers? Because to me, I've had a number of experiences where I just tell myself, people who drive Teslas are the worst drivers in the world. I've seen, Kevin, I've nearly been sideswiped off the road. Kevin, you talk about, there potentially not being an Elite Heat podcast because of things that happen. I've nearly been killed by Tesla drivers.
Really?
Kevin,
wow.
Yeah, like funny stories. I'm driving home from work. It's like a Thursday afternoon or whatever day it was. I'm in the left lane. Okay, there's like a turn off lane to go to where I need to go. And then a car from the right lane, a Tesla, is driving. I'm in line with this car, right? And then they decide, oh, I need to be going off in the lane over here. So all of a sudden, I see Tesla going across, and I pull the brakes. So I'm going 15 k's below the limit. This thing nearly takes my car out, and then I proceed. This is JTE, pal. I'm sitting behind this Tesla in the lane because it's in front of me now because it nearly took me off the road. I'm honking. I'm doing these ones. I'm making a big scene. Yeah, the language was appalling, pal. The language you get us demonetized.
I love it.
I mean, that was just one incident.
Love it.
Not to mention, I had like 5 where just like these are the worst drivers I've seen. And also the other thing with Teslas, because the cars take off so fast from traffic lights, these people think they're drag racers as well. Because Teslas are so, I guess, I don't know that the car speak of this, Kevin, but when you're at a traffic light, the light is red, the light goes green, Teslas just like that take off, and they're at like 80 k's an hour within no time. These cars take off, and then they proceed to get to like an 80k an hour zone. They're going like 110, and they think they own the road. Like, no, you don't run the road. You're driving a car just like everyone else. I'm in a car, you're in a car. Just because Elon Musk is like the big head honcho of the car company you're driving doesn't mean you can do whatever road rules you want, clown. It's just, I don't know, Kevin, any stories on your end?
In specifically the Tesla, no. My
Wow.
brother has a Tesla, and
Oh God.
he's a pretty good driver.
Oh, there
Um,
we go.
I there's not a stigma here about Tesla drivers.
Oh,
Not really. No. I mean, you see a ton of them here, of course, but they're kind of like common. They're kind of like seeing a Honda or a Nissan.
wow.
You know, it's like
Yeah.
okay, or they're driving a Tesla. Like the driving culture here is a lot different than I would say other states. Like Florida drivers get a bad rep, but they're not.
Mhm.
I would say they're not all that bad. Um, you know, like I don't have a ton of instances where I can think of where I've been almost ran off the road by people. You don't see a ton of that where people are just like, "Oh, I didn't notice anyone next to me. Let me just throw my car like in front of this guy real quick." You don't see a ton of that. Maybe
Yeah.
I'm jinxing myself now.
Yeah.
Like one thing you'll see is like you'll see somebody slam on the brakes like 4 or 5 cars up to make a turn that they missed or something. They're like, "Oh my god, I missed a turn. Let me make this turn real quick." So I usually avoid driving in the right lane for that
Yeah.
reason. I don't know how it is in Australia, but here the
Yeah.
right lane is the lane where you know you're driving and then you can just turn into a plaza or a gas station or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, the
Yeah.
left lane is like a light typically, or you have to drive across traffic, so
Yeah.
it's different. Um, yeah, there's a ton of speeding. People speed like crazy.
Mm.
Um, but it's not too bad. It's open roads here. You know, the local roads are pretty open. The highways are 6, 7 lanes, so it's pretty
Yeah.
open. Traffic flows pretty well. Um, as you get closer to Miami, it becomes like it becomes a garbage
Yeah.
show. You know, it could get
Yeah.
kind of bad. You know, you see people walking in the middle of the road. You see these models with like BBLs, like a million plastic surgeries, just like throwing themselves out in the middle of the road in front of green lights. You know, you see that kind of stuff in Miami, but
That's disgraceful. Because Kevin, I mean, remember a few weeks back when we were doing our PWI 500 podcast, I was in Sydney, which is like one of the capital cities here, and like the driving there is just disgusting. It is disgusting, and you know, like you're walking down the street. Like, I'm not even driving here. I'm walking down the street. I've got to go to the supermarket to just get some things. The amount of stuff you see where like there's honking. You think, what's going on now? Like, people are honking at each other. You see some bloke wind the window down, yell something offensive, flip them off, more honking. I'm just like it's bedlam. It's madness, right? Like where I'm at, I'm several hours out of Sydney. Like I'm not in the CBD, which is just like disgusting. It's the same. It's probably similar to Miami in that regard, where it's just like it's a free for all. You know, I don't know about people walking in front of green lights with OFBBLs, but you know,
there's a
like
ton of that in Miami.
that's just
I
hilarious.
would
And
say
I'm not
I'd say
surprised.
out of 10 girls in Miami, 7 of them are probably fake plastic.
Yeah.
I'd say at least 7 of them.
Well, Kevin, it doesn't surprise me the people who get hundreds of DMs a day just for people desperate for them. Like, oh my god, you're so beautiful. Oh my god, these people who receive hundreds and hundreds of positive messages like that think they can walk on water and they're going to walk across the road. Everyone's going to move away from me. Thank you. It's like no, not how it works. You're in the middle of Miami traffic. There's 6 lanes on the freeway. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's
Oh,
ridiculous.
I love it, pal. All right, pal. Well,
God.
you ready to get out of here?
I am, pal. What an experience. Each of us telling a story of how Elite Heat nearly ended. For both the
Yes,
different reasons. So there
exactly.
you
Yeah,
go.
then next week we'll have our special countdown of the top 10 wrestlers of all time. So that's to look forward to. That's gonna be the
Watch
entire
by
episode.
then. Watch by then, because we're only going to be doing the top 10, right? There's going to be no other like wrestling topics. That's just going to be an exclusive standalone top 10 podcast that hopefully will be timeless and anyone can listen to at any time for the next 40 years and yada yada. Watch in the next 5 days, MJF will get fired, or Roman Reigns will retire, or Cody will announce he has something he has to retire, or something. Some bombshell will happen. Triple H will step down. Vince McMahon will die.
Oh
Like
my
something will
god.
happen, right? Like Paul Heyman
Jesus
will have cardiac
Christ.
arrest. Something will happen,
Wow.
right? You know, like there'll be some bombshell, and we'll be like, oh my god, and we'll have to do an elite heat urgently, like an extra on top of this, or we'll have to forget that show and do something else and
Yeah.
put it back another week. Kevin, this is wrestling. This stuff is probably gonna happen anyway.
It's
Nonetheless,
business, pal. All right, so we'll talk to you guys on the next one. Peace.